Amen.
Okay. Sing a good nigga too. Shoishanas Yaakov Tzahal Samecha Pirei Samyachad Tcheles Mordechai Shoishanas Yaakov Tzahal Samecha Pirei Samyachad Tcheles Mordechai Vaychu Asam Vayisal Netzah Vezikva Asam B'chol Dar Bandar Chu Asam Vayisal Netzah Vezikva Asam B'chol Dar Bandar Ding da da la 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 da da la la da da la la Master of the universe, I will sing a song to you. Where will I find you? Oh, but where do I not find you? Where I go, there you are. Where I stay, there you are too. Only you, you alone, you again. Only you, only you, only you, only you. Only you. Again, only you, only you, only you, only you. Master of the universe, sing a song to you. Where will I find you, Boba? Where do I not find you? Where I go, there you are. Where I stay, there you are too. Only you, you alone, you again. Only you, only you, only you, only you. Only you, you alone, you again. Only you, only you, only you, only you, only you. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I know there's plenty to do. It's Erev Yantiv, and it's a fast day today, and there's just always so much going on. So it strengthens me a lot to see so many people come out and really try to grab onto the title of this shir, which is not an easy one. It's not an easy shmuz to give. It's not an easy shir to give. But I don't know anything that's been easy this year. But specifically now, it's so crucial to state all the obvious things that I think that for many of us from the beginning of the period that we've been in, there's been this question that we didn't want to have to ask. There's been like a question no one wanted to address so much. Because I think in deep down inside, no one wanted to, chas v'shalom, God forbid, believe that we would have any, the Zman of now would be similar at all to the Zman of Simchas Torah. But obviously, the underlying question is, it's not like, I hate to say it, I think Hanukkah was still too much of a shock. As far as I know, no one's really on shpilkas with making sure the Yotze, the Pnimius of the deepest depths of Tu B'Shvat, so it didn't drive out from us like, maybe one day we will be, I don't know. I shouldn't say that, my hippie chevra, by them it's like Yom Kippur. Tu B'Shvat, all the chevra in the forest and stuff, that's definitely like Yom Kippur and stuff. But I think it's pretty safe to say that there has been a question. There has been a question, a very hard, very, very real question, and I want to define the question a little bit tonight for a few minutes. And that is, how are we supposed to go into Purim this year? Not the question of, is it okay to still be happy this year? And for that, I think that anyone that didn't see Rabbanit Esti Rosenberg's piece should see it, because that addresses it all. I'm not gonna, she took care of that for everybody. I got it from so many different people, because so many people felt like this is what they were looking for. And whoever wants it, I'll send it out to them. If you're asking the question, how could I be happy this Purim? Then it means you're asking that question from the outside. You're already outside if that's the question. Because the truth is, how could I have been okay doing anything this whole period? Purim puts it in your face. But the real question is, how could I have been doing anything? How could it be? I'll never forget this one year, Tisha B'Av night. I don't know if any of the Chevra here were with me. This was probably like 10, 12 years ago. I led Tisha B'Av night in this beautiful place in Yerushalayim called Rishimu. It was a gorgeous place. I don't know if it's still there. In the heart of Yerushalayim. And we was just saying the deepest Torah's Tisha B'Av night. And one of the Torahs was like, how could it be that we never stood before Hashem and said, we're not building any other imitation Beis HaMikdash until you bring down the third Beis HaMikdash. Like, how could it be we never protested like that? And it struck a chord by one of the Chevras so deep, and he called me out on it when like the night was over and we were going back to the car. he ran after me, and he said to me, Od Rav Tzavua, something like that, meaning another, how do you say tzavua?
Hypocrite.
Yeah, another hypocritical rabbi. I said, what did I say? He's like, לאן אתה הולך? It's like, אני עכשיו התחתנתי, it was probably like 13, 14 years ago, אני התחתנתי, אני גר באפרת. מה אמרת עכשיו? Like, where do you think you're going? Meaning, if you're really real with any of the Torah that you're saying, who gave you the right to stop protesting right now? And it never left me. And, sometimes I feel like it's all mishpach here, I'll say it. So often I say things here that I'm sure the next day no one's going to come back to anything because it's just, I just feel so much at home. But sometimes I'll say things that are just coming from such a place of a little boy whose candy was taken from him, and he's not interested in receiving any other type of candy. And it comes out sometimes maybe in a charif way, but I've also asked myself the question, I think every single day, it's the same question that now we're all facing Erev Purim, and that is, who do I think I am, in the name of what, like with all the holy excuses that I have, about the importance of Shigra, about the importance of Netzach Yisrael, about the importance of being there for your children, being there for your community, and they're all correct, they're all right, but they're all coming from Eitz Hadas, Tov. On the level of Eitz HaChaim, of the tree of life, life stopped to a certain extent this past Simchas Torah. Life itself stopped. And the number of days that families don't know if their loved ones are alive or not, or God forbid atrocities happening to them. Life stops over there, So let's now, I can't answer the question of how we were able to live every day until now, but I will try to go inside a little bit with you about how are we supposed to go into Purim. Ma nishtana Purim hazeh. Mikola Purims, this Purim has nothing to do with any Purim in our lifetimes, we've ever experienced before. Not in our lifetimes. I don't think anyone has ever had some type of Purim. And I already apologize because I know there's some chevra in here who have been leaving messages this week wanting to have this addressed. And, if I myself don't know, then I won't give any shtuyot answers, the politically correct answers. I could just cry with you and share with you a little bit, what my heart feels. And that's where we're meeting right now, this Erev Purim, Tafshin Pei Daled, Purim 2024. I also feel like it's mamish, everything's from Shamayim, but the way that Purim comes out this year, that, usually right about now with our headaches, we'd be listening to Kriyas Megillah. And you go from like the power of Tinius Esther right into being very absorbed, but especially if you have little kids, busy with a lot of details that, don't have a lot to do with like Tinius Esther meeting the Kedusha of Purim. So, on the outside, yeah, you do have a lot, whatever, but really it's very hard. And here what we have this year is like Tinius Esther. What a day, what a powerful day today was. What an amazingly powerful day. And it's like, and now you're going into Parshat Zachor, which is not, it's usually not like this. Parshat Zachor is usually before Tani Esther. So you have 48 hours with a Shabbos Zachor in the middle between the cry of Esther and the Kedusha of Chag Purim. So it gives us the space to really, go into the pnimius of what Purim is all about. So, how am I going to go into Purim? How are we going to go into Purim this year? I'll share with you. One year, late at night, or maybe it was, maybe it was during the Seudah. Rav Kook got up in the middle of his Purim Seudah when he was already there. Rav Kook gets up and he says, Ki eichacha uchal v'ra'isi Bara Shem Tzasami Mechacha Uchal Veraisi Be'ovdan Moladeti. He screamed it. Esther Amalka's words. This is already after Haman and his sons were all toast. But what happens over here? Esther Hamalka says, wait a second, there's a gzeira, there's a decree. How in the world can I live when I see what's happening to my people? How could I live when I see what's happening with the Ovdan, with my nation, with my people, being completely getting lost? Rav Kook cries this in the middle of the Seudah, and he may as well have done it this Purim Seudah, and he said, Zohi kol haTorah kula. This is the whole Torah, not this is Purim. He said, this is the whole Torah. This is the whole Torah. The Talmidim that were there were just in utter shock and utter awe. And they were trying to understand, what is the Rav telling us? Especially since we know, the Talmidim knew, Nichnas yayin yatsa sod. What's going to be coming out of the Purim Seudah? Only secrets. And Rav Kook is one big secret. We've been trying to lefaneach, to crack the code of his, whatever, that's not even he, whatever his language is for so long. Obviously, whatever he's saying is a total sod. So Rav Kook is getting up at the Purim Seudah, and he's crying. How can, he quotes Esther Amalka, how can I see my people, how could I see my people suffering so much? How could I see my people getting so lost? Zoi kol haTorah kula. This is the whole Torah. This is everything. This is everything. And that's our vote this year. You see, it's actually very interesting. If there was ever a year to connect to the Pnimius of Purim, it's actually this year. It's just a different side that we don't usually go to. You see, she asks this question, Esther Amalka, after Kivyachol, the Jewish people were, the mass murderer, the Amalekite, was killed. But she knows there's something hanging on in the air. There's something hovering in the air. There's a gzeira that's on Am Yisrael. There's a decree that's on Am Yisrael. And she says, if that's still in the air, then what is anything worth for me? What's anything worth? Nothing's worth nothing. Shum davar. Ze lo mishane. So, how am I going to connect to this year? Ma nishtana Purim hazeh? Do you know how many psukim in Megillas Esther are the greatest gate openers to learn how to be a Jew? Do you know how many psukim in Megillas Esther are the greatest gate openers to learn how to love? How many psukim are there in Megillas Esther that are bamash ptichat hasharim, to learn how to dream, to learn how to long, to learn how to, you fill in the blank. It's just that because Chazal, they're so funny, they're so cute. I mean, that's weird to say, but no, like they're so cute, and like it's like Chazal is so cute. It's like, if you learn Masechta Megillah, you just see they're the cute. It's the sweetest. I don't mean this in a Chalila, like a belittling way. It's like the sweetest tzaddikim in the world, Chazal. You learn Masechta Megillah, you come out, you're like, this. We have the sweetest group of sages that ever existed, giving drushas upon drushas on every word, every letter, every name, every province, every type of detail you could imagine in Megillas Esther. Chazal come to learn really the pnimius of the story of Esther. Just learn Masechta Megillah, mamash. It's all in the Gemara. It's all there, because all the tzaddikim, that's what they're doing basically. They're just taking from the Gemara. But because we have this thing of Chayav Inish Lebesuni Lepuria Adaloyada Ben Arohaman Lebaruch Mordechai, because we have this pressure leading up to us every year. Okay, this year am I going to get to that place of not being able to tell the difference? It kind of overshadows the whole other world of connecting to the deep, deep concern and pain of Esther and Malka and Mordechai Yehudi. So if there was ever a year that we're connecting to Manishtana Purim Hazeh, there's never been a Purim like this before, ever. Ever. There was never anything close to this. Ki echacha uchal v'ra'iti bara'a she'imtzat ami v'echacha uchal v'ra'iti be'ovdan moladeti. How many times have you asked yourself those words, that question this year? 5.5 months? Is that what it is? Yep. How many times have you asked this question? How is it possible, Ribbon Shalom? How is it possible that I'm supposed to sit here and watch my people suffers so much. How is it possible? That's Esther Amalka's question. So we have to understand that a little bit, because if Rav Kook says in the middle of a Purim Suda that this is the secret of the whole Torah, I want to go inside. I want to understand what these words really mean. I want to understand a little bit deeper what's going on over here. Hey, it's like a shortcut. This is Kol HaTorah Kula. May as well go for it. It's a Kol HaTorah Kula. I want to go for it. Now, Kamuvan, obviously, on a pshat level, okay, and this is not inside, but an outside level, there should be a different element of Purim that looks different on the outside this year. I definitely hear that. And I also think that it's not even going to be unnatural if that's the situation. I think it'll be the most natural thing in the world. Unless, Be'ezer Hashem, we witness a tremendous nace, and of course, Yeshua Hashem Keref Ayin, while we're talking, we could come out of Shir and realize that this Shir would have been relevant for a year where the hostages would still be in captivity. You understand? Alavai, B'Seyad Yishmaya. So on the outside, of course, I got a bunch of different calls asking to make sure that parents should tell their children, really it should be like this every year, but definitely this year with all the napatzim and all the firecrackers and all those things, to mamash, like make sure none of that should be around. And not because we're getting old and straight, chas v'shalom, but it's more because we have arevus zelazeh, we have soldiers that came back from the battlefield. We have children that still can't go to sleep at night, right? Any type of little thing, any type of little trigger, you set them back. It's a pashut lo le'inyan. There's also, I checked through all of Shulchan Aruch. There's no mitzvah saseh of a firecracker or anything. It doesn't show up. It's not there. It's not there. Even the amount of rashanim v'chulei, pseder. The question on the back of our mind is always, how much do we want to take away from the children? Right? That's always the question. How much do you want to take away from the children? And it's a very logical question, but our children aren't metumtamim. Our children aren't stupid. They also understand this is a different Purim this year. So how are we going into it on the pnimius? On the outside, yeah, it should look, it's going to be different. But different doesn't mean wrong. And that's what I want to stress. Different does not mean that it's b'diavad. But lechatchila, bless you, if it was lechatchila, and we wouldn't have had this whole mishagas that we're in, then it would just be party, hard partying. That's also not it. Zat omeret, that the different way that I'm going into Purim this year is also lechatchila. I just never really felt the need or had the opportunity to go into Purim like this. If I told you, last year, 2 years ago, listen, Chaver, the height of Purim would be when you're in the highest place, if you could cry the psukim of Esther Amalka, Ki eichacha uchal v'ra'iti, bara'a she'imitzah et ami, v'chacha uchal ra'iti b'avdan moladati, you say, why are you being such a downer? We suffered enough. Until Mashiach comes, there's no such thing as suffering enough. Ein davar kazeh. Until the Beit HaMikdash is back with us and the Shekhinah is residing in this world. So that's what's important to understand, that what we're saying tonight, the difference is not a b'diavad. It could be the greatest lechatchila in the world. Because I believe with all my heart and soul, as much as the Gemara says that if Yidden would keep 2 Shabbosim, then the Geula would come. I also believe with all my heart and soul, if we really kept Purim, if Purim was mamish Purim, there'd be, and like we always say, you don't do Havdalah Motzei Purim. That means in a certain way you stay in there all year long, right? We don't do Kiddush either, so it's a little bit hard to figure this out, but some say Mikra Megillah is like the Kiddush, whatever. It'd be a Purim that you go into and you never come out of. If Purim was Mamish Purim. If Purim was for real. Real Purim. The real moments of Purim. Eichacha uchal v'ra'iti. The Shaila, Rav Kook's words, have not, maybe they didn't yet meet us at our Purim Suda because we haven't gotten to it yet, but it's definitely been at our Shabbos tables, it's been in our davening, it's been at our Hanukkah candles, it's been on the weekday, the mornings, the nights, the afternoons, it's been by davenings, it's been by shiurim. That Shaila has shown up almost every single way, every single place, but the headquarters of it is on Purim itself. to really tune into this. Zo kol Torah kula. For the last few years, it happens often. The last few years, one of the greatest hashpahs for me on Purim, I can get very usually with, once you go into Sifri Chasidus, Yantiv start becoming so overwhelming, and it's nothing to do with food or guests or davening. It has to do with the achana, with the svarim, with the rebbes, with the tzaddikim that you're learning from. Instead of just enjoying it and being like, oh, I would love to see what he has to say. No, I got to figure out what he has to say and what he has to say. The last few years, I haven't even attempted to really go that far with others. Although, this year, because of our precious Machon Zimrat Haaretz, we did go deep into the PSS Rebbe's teachings on Purim. So I want to share with you one teaching from the PSS Rebbe on Purim. And if the PSS Rebbe can give over a Torah on Purim in 1940 in the Warsaw Ghetto, we could also hear it today. All right? We could also hear it today. Although I will say like this. Some would ask the question, what was a weirder situation? The PSS Rebbe in the Warsaw Ghetto on Purim, or Yidden living in Eretz Yisrael in the situation that they're in 2024? Right away, the voice that many of us have is like, you can't compare. Don't be kfui toiva. Don't be... Mazel tov. You said it. We got it out of our system now. Now let's go back into that shaila. The bilbul that we're in right now, you have to understand, is exactly what Rabbi Nachman says when he talked about hastara shebetoch hastara. This is hastara shebetoch hastara. You understand? The Warsaw Ghetto is not hastara shebetoch hastara. It's a hester, panim. Nothing is alluding to looking like it's good. There's no like, oh, this is good, but this is also bad. It's just dark. One of the ways of understanding hastara shebetoch hastara, concealment within a concealment, is that, wait a second, this is supposed to be good right now, and it's really, really, really not. And then the deeper I look into the way things are, I realize how much they're really, really not good. And that's one way of understanding the concept of a concealment within a concealment. So first, let me tell you like this. This is a Torah that's going to help us very much be able to hold on to Purim this year so that you don't feel that Chalila, you weren't Yotzei the day or not. The Eish Kodesh wrote this in 1940 during the war, during World War II. And it's a short piece, but what he basically says is that everyone knows how the Zohar Kodesh says that, Yom Kippur is like Purim, Yom Kippurim. So how am I supposed to understand that? Says the PSS Rebbe like this. What do we know? One of the things about Yom Kippur, and it's a machlokes in the Gemara, it's one of the Deas says that Itzumo shel Yom Mechaper, that something about Yom Kippur is that, how do I know if it really worked or not? Which is a total tree of knowledge type of question. Like, how do I know if I really was forgiven and that I really got clean? So no one could ever really say, I think it worked, because if you say that, that means you were out. If you actually walk out of Yom Kippur and you're like, yeah, now I'm clean. Mashu chasel, you're missing something in the program, right? But if you say, Hashem said that now I'm clean, and that's why I'm clean, that's something else. So the day on the Gemara that says, Itzumo shel Yom Mechaper, means you can go through Yom Kippur, you don't really know if it worked or not, whatever it is, but just understand something. The day itself is so powerful that the power of the day itself made sure that you went through that car wash, that soul wash. It's nothing to do with you even. We couldn't tell you this before Yom Kippur because then you wouldn't try so hard. But after Yom Kippur, you have to remember Itzumo shel Yom Mechaper. Says the Rebbe, says the PSS Rebbe. And a Yiddilah that's sitting in the Warsaw Ghetto, 1940, Nazis all around him, and Jews sitting in Efrat, 2024, with Nazis all around us, Nazis. We were so easy using that word the first 2 weeks of the war. Suddenly we started feeling all politically correct and we stopped using that word. Absolute Nazis all around us here. How am I supposed to go through Purim? So the Rebbe says, Itzumo shel Yom, same concept. Just like the fact that the day itself is so potent. Yom Kippur is so strong. You do your best, and the day itself does the effect that it needs to do on you. Just trust it. He says the same exact thing with Purim. He says, do you think the Ribono Shel Olam expects you to be dancing on a table, singing Shoshanas Yaakov right now? We still can, kind of. But in there, you think that you could do that? Mapitom. So therefore, he says to all the Jews, listen, don't freak out now with your whole PTGD problem that you have. We spoke about the post-traumatic God disorder. Don't get all, don't get all freaked out. Listen, Be'etzem, you have 4 mitzvahs of the day. You have to hear Megillah, you have to give Mishlach Manot, you have to do Matanot Levyonim, and you have to have a Seudah. You do your best. You do your best. And the rest of it, Ribono Shel Olam, Ki echacha uchal v'ra'iti bara'a she'imtza et atzmi. You want to tell me, Ribono Shel Olam, in the state that Am Yisrael is in right now, you don't want me to see the ra'a she'imtza et ami, especially on Purim? Can't be. It cannot be. It just can't be that the Ribono Shel Olam is, this whole thing is like this, and on the day of such arevus, of being guarantors, of having this renewed sense of Am Echad, yes, mefuzar mufarad, but Am Echad, that on this day, ani lo yir'eh bara'a she'imtza et atzmi, because it's going to bring me down, can't be. Lahefech. So we do our best. We do our best. And we don't try to pretend. We don't force ourselves to be happier than we are. We do our best as Jews that are living in a very, like my father, I just spoke to my father before Shir, said to me, Pashut akol muzar, huh? Akol pashut muzar. It's a pashut muzar. It's just strange. And I'm his son. He should tell me, lo, Shlomo, akol yeh, but, lo, tireh, akol letova, like, akol mistader. Do you know how much more connected I am that he's able to tell me that? No, akol muzar. This is all strange. This is all strange. We don't understand. We don't have any idea what's going on. Forget about the world. That I think we do understand. Esav Sonel Yaakov is not a chiddush. In the world, what's going on in the world, it's not a chiddush. It's a painful state of metzius. But our question that we're stuck with tonight is, okay, I'll do my best. Okay, I'll try as hard as I can. V'chule, v'chule. But Ribono Shel Olam, I want to take advantage of this Purim like never before on the level of lechatchila. I actually want to go deeper than ever into Purim, more than I ever did. I don't want it to just be that I reach the level that I could cry over Am Yisrael. I want even more than that. You know why? Because this pasuk from the Megillah, Ki echacha uchal v'ra'iti, like we said, has been our pasuk. It has been our pasuk this whole 5.5 months. That's been our pasuk. How could I see this? How could I live like this? How could I live like what? How could I live in a state that it seems that Ra, it has its own mitzias, that evil, that darkness has its own reality? How could I accept this? How could I accept it? How could it be? So what I was telling you before is that the last 2 or 3 years, what's captured me, Purim, has been Rav Kluger. I don't even know how to have the words to express my thankfulness to Hashem for this tzaddik in our lives. We've been learning him, I think, most of this year on Thursday mornings, right? With the women, it's been most of the year. I think from the beginning of the year, Rav Kluger. Rav Kluger is a tzaddik, a young tzaddik, lives here in Beit Shemesh, and the way he just says Torah is, it's just Hashem nu, ata noten lem tochlam beito. You gave us exactly what we need in this door. And Rav Kluger addresses this question. And he asks this question, how is a Yid supposed to live in a world where he sees that it seems that Ra has its own mitzias, that it's a balabas. That Ra, that evil, is not just like appears, it has a whole ma'amad. It has a whole status in the world. How are we supposed to understand this or accept it? Ech yachol liot? How could it be? So I want to read I want to learn with you 2 lines from here. You know, whenever any Rav says 2 lines, it's like 4 paragraphs. Just saying. But I didn't want to learn the whole piece inside because I want to stay really focused on this question of answering ourselves our own question. I want us to answer it through the Megillah. I want us to answer the question. Birshut Hashem, kamuvan. I want to answer it with you. We have to remember that Chazal teach us that Purim is the greatest preparation for Geula. How do we know this? Because Chazal tell us that La'atid Lavo, it seems that most agree that all the Moadim, all the Yontivs are going to be Batel besides Purim. Why is that? What happened over here? What is so strong about it? So strange. A completely within the realm of nature, Chutz La'aretz situation. And yet that is the story that's going to last with us forever. And that is the preparation for us for Geula. Rav Kook points us to a few points throughout the Megillah that shows us how all the things, all the different metziuyot of Ra, all the different realities of Ra, ended up being preparations for the greatest things that could happen to us. But when they were still in the realm of Ra, it was Ra. It was Ra. No one was walking around the tree that Haman prepared to hang Mordechai and was like, wow, I can't wait for this to turn out good. You understand? When it was up there and everyone passed by it, it was bad. And that's the same thing today. That if we get a little bit of a 20-second horror film from Gaza showing us a sign of life or Khalila, sign of death of one of our brothers and sisters held in captivity by these Nazis, Yamach Shemam Zichram, no one should be like, oh, listen, yesh inyan shnitapech hakol tova. Like we said in this morning's shir, just, you got to go to the beach or something. I can't, it's not in our realm of relating to things like that. No, when the Ra is Ra, when the Ra is the Metziut, it's right there in front of you. But just remember something Rav Kluger says. The Pasuk says, "V'haman ba lachatzei beit hamelech hachitzona le'emor lamelech litlot et Mordechai al ha'etz asher yichin lo." Haman shows up and he tells the king, "Yeah, this is the tree. Here you're going to hang Mordechai, asher yichin lo, that he prepared for him." And there's a fascinating drush. There's a fascinating statement in the Gemara. It says, "Hechin lo." Lo hechin. Haman didn't realize what he was saying. He was preparing it for himself. Haman thought he was preparing the tree for Mordechai, but really he was preparing it for himself. And you know what Haman, you know how much he prepared it for himself? He didn't even realize it. The Medrash tells us that Haman basically assumed that he was more or less the same size and height of Mordechai. So you know what he did? He did some test runs just with a chair underneath the chev. Like he did the whole thing. He made sure that he would be killed. It's a crazy thing. He made sure that his end would be what it would be. But while he was making sure subconsciously that his end would be what it would be, we stood there crying our eyes out. We stood there in such pain and horror like we are today. That's where he was. That's where we were. Now the Ramchal, he brings here a very important Ramchal that helps us to tune into everything we've been saying tonight. The Ramchal says that really, what seems to be a reality of bad in this world is an illusion. The good is never an illusion. The bad, having any shlita, is really, really, really never real. That's not a real thing. That metzius is never real, the Ramchal says. It's just that in our time that we're in right now, this is what the hastara shebetocha hastara is causing us to experience, that we cannot see the truth of truths. The truth of truths is that Amalek will fall. Yidden will prosper. There will be a Beit HaMikdash HaShlishi. Mashiach's going to come. We're going to love each other like crazy. It's going to be good. We're going to raise our children in a world where when we travel, when we go to Yerushalayim, when we go to Hebron, can you imagine not even thinking twice, but mamash not thinking twice about anything? Can you imagine that? Like mamash, not even thinking about it at all. It's true. 100 years ago, our grandparents couldn't even imagine that we'd have a thing called Yerushalayim. But we didn't come back to Eretz Yisrael to still live like the way that we're living right now. But that's an ashlaya, says the Ramchal. Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. That's not real. He says, "La'atid lavo yiru ayin ba'ayin ech be'emet kol habriya kula lo hayta ela ach verak bishvil Yisrael sheyavdu et Hashem yitbarach v'yigalu ba et metziuto." Be'emet, in the future, everyone will see how everything in the creation was only prepared for us to eventually be the best of the Hashem that we could ever be. And in the beginning of all processes that have to do with Geula, it looks like Galus, and it is Galus. And this you hear all the time. How could I watch? How could I look at any pain that's happening to my people? Well, today we have a Jewish army. And when the Jewish army is allowed to do what needs to be done, they put the whole world to shame. We live amongst heroes beyond heroes somewhere in this room right now. They're not waiting for a day that evil will stop looking like a reality. They have the schus of putting out evil in this world. That's mamish happening in front of our eyes. That's a very real thing that happens in front of our eyes. But the beginning of the miracle, Rav Kluger says, was that, you have to hear this is just so far out. It ties into everything we're saying. The beginning of the miracle was that Achashverosh killed Vashti through the Eitzah of somebody. Who gave Achashverosh the Eitzah to kill Vashti? What's his name over there? Memuchan. Memuchan, the Gemara tells us, that's really Haman. Why did Haman give Achashverosh the Eitzah that he should kill Vashti? Because he had a daughter and he wanted her to marry into the Malchus. This is Haman's whole geschäft. That's what the Midrash tells us. The Vasof, who ended up, now that there was a vacancy in the queen's seat, because Haman's Eitzah to kill Vashti worked, there was room now. And who goes into that place? Esther HaMalka. Says Rav Kluger, if you look at every single detail in the Megillah, everything is showing us that things that looked like they were horrible, wicked, evil, gave room for Kedusha to find a place and to shine in this world. And that is why, if we allow a reality after the Churban that we went through in Simchas Torah, where a reality of evil is not removed and stored with holiness, light, in Jewish life, Hashem Yirachem Aleinu. If what's called the Gaza Strips looks anything like it did before Simchas Torah, Anachnu pashut lo mevinim ma ze liot Am Yisrael be'eretz Yisrael. You see, in the story of the Megillah, the evil that was there, it was there. And when it was there, it was strong. It had a power over us. It was horrible. But the Megillah, Rav Kluger, and he goes on, prakim and prakim, showing us every detail of the story of Megillas Esther, was when there was a mitziut of Ra in the world, Gewalt, was it bad. And we cried. But afterwards I saw that thing which was bad and looked like he was going to reign forever, only gave space for an infinite amount more of light. Do you know the days after Simchas Torah this year? What petrified me the most was words that our dear holy brother, who Hashem chose to be a big voice in Am Yisrael, Hanan Ben Ari, said 2 weeks ago. He didn't perform publicly at all, like many of the artists in Am Yisrael. He was jumping from base to base, home to home, shiva to shiva, mamash. So one of the first shivas, family from Ranana, Ziring. My parents were friendly with the family, and the son who was killed, I think he was killed on Simchas Torah, or maybe the day after, I don't remember. He was a big Hanan Ben Ari fan. The family somehow knew that we had a kesher to him, so they reached out. My father asked me, can you tell him? And that was the week where you're running from Levaya to Levaya, funeral to funeral, shiva to shiva. It was just insanity. And then the last few minutes of the last night of shiva, the family sent my father a picture and said, Tire mi ba lechabek otanu. And he walked in, he came to that shiva, the last few minutes of the shiva of that family in Ranana. But he didn't publicly perform for a few months, and only now, some of the chevra are starting a little bit now, even though it's very weird. It's eerie, and it should be. If it's not eerie, it's wrong. In my humble opinion. If it's not a little bizarre, if it feels funky, that's right. The Metziut is funky. But when he put out a notice for his shows coming up on Chol HaMoed Pesach, he said, L'agid lechem et haemet, ani kol kach mefached. Ani mefached יותר mikol shelo zaznu millimeter. He said, that's what I'm scared of the most. That when we meet each other again, we'll see we haven't moved an inch, we haven't moved at all. Zot omeret, what happened to us if it's going to change our Purims, if it's changing our life day to day as it is it not supposed to change facts on the ground either? It has to. Who am I? I have no voice. I mean, I'm just sitting here with a bunch of friends sharing my heart, but Ech yachol liot? It's almost like saying that the aftermath of the story of Purim was just that Haman, Bezrat Hashem, the Haman of today, will be killed, right? That's it. Vezeu, and we continued living in Persia, and Achashverosh was king, and things just continued normally, but that evil demon wasn't there anymore to threaten and kill us. Can you imagine if that's the aftermath of the Metziut that we're living in right now? Who's willing to accept that? Ki echacha ucha v'ra'iti, bara'a asher yimtza et ami. I don't think anyone's willing to accept that. You just, like Esti Rosenberg was saying, she's asking Rishut to have a Purim. We're asking Rishut from Hashem to move into this next realm of the Purim Megillah unfolding in our lives and saying, if it was up to us, Hashem, and we didn't have the responsibilities you put in our life, and we didn't have chayalim to help take care of, we would all be protesting and not doing anything every single day. We wouldn't do anything. And on Purim, I'm ki'ilu silently protesting to Hashem. I am. With that pasuk from that Rav Kook cried and everything else we're saying, I am protesting to Hashem. I'm bringing it down differently. I'm saying to the Ribono Shel Olam, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that the way that things unfolded and the aftermath of Megillas Esther, which was an attempt to have all the Jews of the world come back to Eretz Yisrael and build the second Beis HaMikdash, which was a nice attempt, not so successful. I'm not willing for any other aftermath. I'm not willing for the end of this story that I'm in right now to not be that you bring Mashiach with us, that we bring Mashiach and we actually build the... However it is, we build it, you build it, I don't care that it happens. I'm not willing for anything else. I think that's what Hashem wants us to say. I don't think it's like a parent that wants us to, like clean up, do our chores, and it doesn't work the same. In Chassidus, the whole thing is that God looks at the fool that thinks that I asked for too much, let me just be thankful with what I have. By Hashem, it's the opposite. The moment you stop asking for me, you don't understand what it means to have a relationship with God. Purim is pushing us, especially this year, to ask Hashem, just like Haman, that whole thing, and it ended up being him that was hung, and that he told Achashverosh to kill Vashti, and then Esther Amalka came and she reigned, and she was the queen and everything. We're not willing to go back to our lives. I shared with one of the Chaver the other day. It wasn't the person's fault, but I got so triggered when someone called this year about Yom Ha'atzmaut, about an event that I mamish lost it. I got so triggered. It was a text, so I didn't lose it on the person. I'm just inside. I said, what are you talking about? After finding out that they wanted to do a similar event to what's been. We'll add a few kapitlach tehillim. Oh boy. No. It can't be. So, it can't be, this Purim is a blechat chila, going into the pnimiyus of Purim, not b'di eved, hakol tov ve'yafeh. But where does it leave us on a lemaisa level? Everything we said right now is heart. It's almost this place of, it's an ashkafic way of entering into the Yom HaKadosh ve'anorah. And it evokes quite a lot of emotions, v'chule. But let's just end with a little lemaisa. What should we do? We said a little bit what we shouldn't do. We said what we're allowed to not do and still be okay, v'chule. But now, like, lemaisa, on a lemaisa level. What's our horaot pticha be'esh? Right? How do you say that in English?
Rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement. It's a very strange translation for horaot pticha be'esh, no? But I guess it means the same thing. Okay, Chava, so we have to end up with a story that's going to sweeten all of this. This is one of the most far-out Purim stories. It's a wild story. And go there with me for a second to the Chatzar of Reb Chaim of Tzanz, the Sanzer Rebbe. Reb Chaim Halberstam, a giant amongst giants, the Divrei Chaim. It's a very hard sefer, the Divrei Chaim. The Tzanzer, today Tzanz became Kloisenberg, but it still remained Tzanz. You still have it today. Reb Chaim Tzanzer was a Gadol Kadosh V'Naira Shmai. I have a few books just on stories about him. Every story you have to pause and you have to inhale it and be like, I cannot believe Hashem, there was a Jew like this in the world. Every story about Reb Chaim Tzanz. So Reb Chaim Tzanz, late at night at his Seudah, because they went way to the night like we do, and I've been mentioning it everywhere I am. Every year our home is always open from 4 p.m. and on. Today this year we're just going to have our Seudah up here in the social hall, so from 4 p.m. and on it's open for everybody. For those that would like to join us, it'd be a great zchut. I don't know what time Reb Chaim Tzanz finished his Seudah, but the way the story goes is that he probably finished it close to like 2 or 3 in the morning. It was pitch black in the middle of the night of cold suns, and everyone knew, what does Reb Chaim Tzanz do when the Seudah is over? All the Hasidim gather with torches, some gather with candles, and they started traveling through the town of Suns. And Reb Chaim Tzanz would always know about the few houses that he had to go to. He'd go to a house, he would tell the Hasidim, stop here. And when he said stop here, that meant that the Gaboim then brought him some pebbles and rocks, and he started chucking rocks at the windows of the house that they stopped before. No, not because he was toasted and drunk. Reb Chaim Tzanz, the Hasidim knew that if there was an akara that lived in the house, if there was a barren woman that lived in that house and the couple couldn't have kids, he would basically, this is what tzaddikim do, he would stone the window until it cracked. And everyone knew at that moment what he was basically doing is that in Shamayim he was cracking a chasima, a blockage, of shefa that couldn't come down, and everyone knew that that year that woman would have a child. Then he'd go to another house. They'd say, stop. They'd bring the pebbles, they'd bring the stones. He starts pebbling, rocking the house. And then what would happen? Again, he would crack the window open. That house, there's been a machla in this house that the child suffering in this house just couldn't get out of this illness. Reb Chaim Sanzer understood in the height of the Kedusha of Purim, this is how we do it. This is how we do things, right? This is how we crack it open. And that's what he did over there. And this would happen every year at the end of Purim, a few homes, 2 or 3 homes. Mamish, like 3, 4 in the morning. Now, I always wondered, like, did he give warnings to the families that he was going to go to before Purim? Listen, if you hear someone, cracking your windows, is like not to freak out. I don't know, but I assume that the couples that lived in Sanz that knew of this were probably davening all year long that the Tzanzer comes to my house and cracks my window. Probably. Now, after he would say, right after he cracked the window, at that moment, there was a Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemaim, and he would start saying over Torahs, wild Torahs. The thing is, the Hasidim were gone. So no one remembered any of the Torahs he said. They're not written down anywhere. Besides 1 year, that there was like what we call a sober tripper. One of the guys didn't partake, or maybe it wore off, but we only have one Torah. We only have one teaching from this episode of Reb Chaim Sanzer cracking open the windows and saying a Torah at that moment. And I think this is just a good way to put everything into focus for tonight. Reb Chaim Sanzer says like this. The Gemara says, "Asi da Kadosh Baruch Hu la'asos machol tzadikim." What's going to happen in the future? The Rebbeinu Shleilim is going to make a circle. The Hasidim are all going to be sitting in a circle, and then machol, there's a lashon there, whether it means circle or machol, as many of you know with your daughters, means dance. And the Rebbeinu Shleilim is going to be dancing in the middle of the circle for the tzaddikim, and then each tzaddik is going to point and basically say, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo nagila v'nismacha b'yishuasa. The reality of God, of light, of goodness, of no hester panim, will be presented before all the tzaddikim. And that's how we usually darshan out that Gemara. That's what it means. But that year, the Tzanzer Rebbe said, yeah, that's the pshat. Not that that's pshat, that's pretty sod if you ask me, but that's basically how he touched it on the first level. But then he said like this, everyone also knows, what else does the word machol lashon, what is the lashon of machol, where does it come from? Mechila. Al Sida Kadosh Baruch Hu la'asos mechila l'tzadikim. The Rebbeinu Shleilim is going to bring down some type of a mechila of forgiveness that he gives over to tzaddikim. So the Reb Chaim Tzanzer says, this machol, this dance that the Rebbeinu Shleilim is doing, right, for the tzaddikim, let's face it, where is that taking place? In heaven or in hell? What would you think? In heaven. It's only one problem. You could say this on Purim. Heaven, the area wasn't big enough. So the only way to do it was that if they actually went to hell, where there's a lot more chevra there, so it's a lot more space. So Chaim Tzanzer says, what ended up happening is that the Rebbeinu Shleilim gives a whistle. He's like, of that dance this year, listen, follow me, and they go to Gehenom. And basically, each tzaddik comes to a Rasha and says, I'm sorry, do you meichel me? I just need the space for this, what's going to be going on over here right now. And each Rasha is like, sure, of course. And the tzaddiks, all the tzaddikim are doing there, and there's one big mechila, everyone asking apologies from each other. I'm sorry, I just got to kick you out of your makom, but I need the space over here. And then God's going to start dancing. You know what everyone's going to realize? Is that place called Gehenom stopped being Gehenom. That place called hell was transformed into Gan Eden. That's paradise. Paradise isn't just a place where if you were good, you get there. Paradise becomes paradise when there's such roa, but somehow you make space, you say, I gotta move in here, there's no, You got to be very trickery, like Reb Chaim Tzanzer was with the rocks. You got to be a chacham. You got to do it in a trickery way. Like one time, I'll never forget this. Rabbi Twersky Zatzal, Rabbi Abraham Twersky Zatzal, he used to frequent friends of ours' Shabbos table in Katamun, the Luries. And they would often have like youngsters, gap year students at the table as well. And then it happened one Friday night, but it wasn't just one Friday night. I was told it happened many Friday nights. That Rabbi Twersky would be sitting here, and some chavra, yeshivish guys or non-yeshivish gap year students were on the other side of the table, and they're schmoozing, they're talking through divrei Torah and shit. And Rabbi Twersky pretended that he thought that they were talking to him. So he would stop and say, "I'm sorry, I'm very hard of hearing. Do you mind coming closer? I just can't hear what you're trying to tell me." And these guys would be so embarrassed, like we weren't trying to talk to him at all, but Rabbi Twersky is telling us to come closer. We got to come closer. Before you knew it, all those guys that were at the end, through this tachbula of Rav Twersky, would end up sitting around him the whole seudah. Reb Chaim Tzanzer, Pebbles, us, the tzaddikim, playing this trick of transforming hell into heaven by saying, "I'm sorry, the dance is happening here." If we could take it upon ourselves that any space that we see where people feel like they're in darkness, ask God for a hack at that moment. Ask Hashem Yisbarach, give me some kind of trick to flip the whole thing over right now. Whether it's doing that Rabbi Twersky thing, whether it's being really artistic like Reb Chaim Tzanzer, or whatever it is. But Ribbon Shleilam, Echacha uchal v'ra'iti bara'a she'imtza'at mi also means, how could I continue living in a world where my fellow Yidden keep on finding Ra in themselves? If we could take a moment of changing a person's perspective about themselves, about the Ra in them, it's the hashlama of what Rav Kook was really saying, Zeh kol Torah kula. This is the whole Torah kula. Like the Rebbe told us, we're here to change over the whole world. Each person is a whole world. How are we going to go into Purim this year? On the level of what was, it's impossible. On the level of what is now, it's impossible not to go into Purim. Al pi the pnimius of Esther Amalka. There is no other way. It's a lechatchila. And Rav Kook is there with us telling us, if that's your mahalach, if that's where you're going to go, then Be'ezer Hashem, the end of this story won't just be a small aliyah that builds another 2 or 3 nice shuls. The end of this story will be that we all come back home forever and crown the King Melech HaMashiach, and with the building of the 3rd Beit HaMikdash, B'simcha v'sasan, and v'yomar le'tzaroteinu dai, and all our tzaros, please God, will be over. And we should have the most meaningful, deepest Purim like we never had before, and to find ourselves throughout the next few days, especially the next 48 hours, a lot of these moments of already saying, Hashem, I don't want to be surprised when things flip over. I want to already be in that place of, I know this is going to happen, so you mamish can't let me down. Thank you for coming.